Saint Augustine on the Most Holy Trinity, Book 8, Chapter 3. How God may be known to be the chief good. The mind does not become good unless by turning to God. Behold again and see if thou canst. Thou certainly dost not love anything except what is good, since good is the earth, with the loftiness of its mountains and the due measure of its hills, and the level surface of its plains. And good is an estate that is pleasant and fertile, and good is a house that is arranged in due proportion, and is spacious and bright, and good are animal and animate bodies, and good is the air that is temperate and salubrious, and good is food that is agreeable and fit for health, and good is health without pains or lassitude, and good is the countenance of man that is disposed in fit proportions, and is cheerful in look and bright in colour, and good is the mind of a friend, with the sweetness of agreement, and with the confidence of love. And good is a righteous man, and good are riches, since they are readily useful, and good is the heaven with its sun and moon and stars, and good are the angels by their holy obedience, and good is discourse that sweetly teaches and suitably admonishes the hearer, and good is a poem that is harmonious in its numbers and weighty in its sense. And why add yet more and more? This thing is good and that good, but take away this and that and regard good itself if thou canst. So wilt thou see God not good by a good that is other than himself, but the good of all good. For in all these good things, whether those which I have mentioned, or any else that are to be discerned or thought, we could not say that one was better than another, when we judge truly, unless a conception of the good itself had been impressed upon us, such that according to it we might both approve some things as good, and prefer one good to another. So God is to be loved, not this and that good, but the good itself. For the good that must be sought for the soul is not one above which it is to fly by judging, but to which it is to cleave by loving. And what can this be except God? Not a good mind, or a good angel, or the good heaven, but the good good. For perhaps what I wish to say may be more easily perceived in this way. For when, for instance, a mind is called good, as there are two words, so from these words I understand two things, one thereby it is mind, and another whereby it is good. And itself had no share in making itself a mind, for there was nothing as yet to make itself to be anything, but to make itself to be a good mind, I see, must be brought about by the will, not because that by which it is mind is not itself anything good, for how else is it already called, and most truly called better than the body? But it is not yet called a good mind for this reason, that the action of the will still is wanted, by which it is to become more excellent, and if it has neglected this, then it is justly blamed, and is rightly called not a good mind. For it then differs from the mind which does perform this, and since the latter is praiseworthy, the former doubtless, which does not perform, it is blamable. But when it does this of set purpose, and becomes a good mind, it yet can't attain to being so unless it turn itself to something which itself is not. And to what can it turn itself that it may become a good mind, except to the good which it loves and seeks and obtains? And if it turns itself back again from this, and becomes not good, then by the very act of turning away from the good, unless that good remain in it from which it turns away, it can't again turn itself back thither if it should wish to amend. Wherefore there would be no changeable goods unless there were the unchangeable good. Whenever then thou art told of this good thing and that good thing, which things can also in other respects be called not good, if thou canst put aside those things which are good by the participation of the good, and discern that good itself by the participation of which they are good, for when this or that good thing is spoken of, thou understandest together with them the good itself also. If then I say thou canst remove these things, and canst discern the good in itself, then thou wilt have discerned God. And if thou shalt cleave to him with love, thou shalt be forthwith blessed. But whereas other things are not loved, except because they are good, be ashamed in cleaving to them, not to love the good itself whence they are good. That also which is a mind only because it is a mind, while it is not yet also good by the turning itself to the unchangeable good, but as I said, is only a mind. Whenever it so pleases us as that we prefer it, even if we understand aright, to all corporeal light, does not please us in itself, but in that skill by which it was made. For it is thence approved as made, wherein it is seen to have been made, wherein it is seen to have been to be made. This is truth and simple good, for it is nothing else than the good itself, and for this reason also the chief good. For no good can be diminished or increased, except that which is good from some other good. Therefore the mind turns itself in order to be good to that by which it comes to be a mind. Therefore the will is then in harmony with nature, so that the mind may be perfected in good, when that good is loved by the turning of the will to it, whence that other good also comes which is not lost by the turning away of the will from it. For by turning itself from the chief good, the mind loses the being of a good mind, but it does not lose the being a mind. And this too is a good already, and one better than the body. The will therefore loses that which the will obtains. For the mind already was that could wish to be turned to that from which it was, but that as yet was not that could wish to be before it was. And herein is our supreme good, when we see whether the thing ought to be or to have been, respecting which we comprehend that it ought to be or to have been, and when we see that the thing could not have been unless it ought to have been, of which we also do not comprehend in what manner it ought to have been. This good then is not far from every one of us, for in it we live and move and have our being. Acts chapter 17 verses 27 and 28. Chapter 4. God must first be known by an unerring faith, that he may be loved. But it is by love that we must stand firm to this and cleave to this, in order that we may enjoy the presence of that by which we are, and in the absence of which we could not be at all. For as we walk as yet by faith and not by sight, 2 Corinthians 5:7, we certainly do not yet see God, as the same apostle saith, face to face, 1 Corinthians 13:12, whom, however, we shall never see, unless now already we love. But who loves what he does not know? For it is possible something may be known and not loved. But I ask whether it is possible that what is not known can be loved, since if it can't, then no one loves God before he knows him. And what is it to know God except to behold him and steadfastly perceive him with the mind? For he is not a body to be searched out by carnal eyes, but before also that we have power to behold and to perceive God, as he can be beheld and perceived, which is permitted to the pure in heart. For blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Matthew 5:8. Except he is loved by faith, it will not be possible for the heart to be cleansed, in order that it may be apt and meet to see him. For where are there those three, in order to build up which in the mind the whole apparatus of the divine scriptures has been raised up, namely faith, hope, and charity, 1 Corinthians 13:13. Except in a mind believing what it does not see yet, and hoping and loving what it believes, even he therefore who is not known but yet is believed can be loved. But indisputably we must take care, lest the mind, believing that which it does not see, feign to itself something which is not, and hope for and love that which is false. For in that case it will not be charity out of a pure heart and of a good conscience, and of faith unfeigned, which is the end of the commandment, as the same apostle says, 1 Timothy 1:5. But it must needs be that when by reading or hearing of them we believe in any corporeal things which we have not seen, the mind frames for itself something under bodily features and forms, just as it may occur to our thoughts, which either is not true, or even if it be true, which can most rarely happen, yet this is of no benefit to us to believe in by faith, but it is useful for some other purpose, which is intimated by means of it. For who is there that reads or hears what the Apostle Paul has written, or what has been written of him, that does not imagine to himself the countenance both of the Apostle himself and of all those whose names are there mentioned? And whereas among such a multitude of men to whom these books are known, each imagines in a different way those bodily features and forms, it is assuredly uncertain which it is that imagines them more nearly and more like the reality. Nor indeed is our faith busied therein with the bodily countenance of those men, but only that by the grace of God they so lived and so acted as that Scripture witnesses. This it is which it is both useful to believe, and which must not be despaired of, and must be sought. For even the countenance of our Lord himself in the flesh is variously fancied by the diversity of countless imaginations, which yet was one, whatever it was. Nor in our faith which we have of our Lord Jesus Christ is that wholesome which the mind imagines for itself, perhaps far other than the reality, but that which we think of man according to his kind. For we have a notion of human nature implanted in us, as it were by rule, according to which we know forthwith that whatever such thing we see is a man, or the form of a man. Chapter 5. How the Trinity may be loved, thou, and known. Our conception is framed according to this notion when we believe that God was made man for us as an example of humility and to show the love of God towards us. For this it is which it is good for us to believe and to retain firmly and unshakenly in our heart that the humility by which God was born of a woman and was led to death through contumelies so great by mortal men is the chiefest remedy by which the swelling of our pride may be cured, and the profound mystery by which the bond of sin may be loosed. So also, because we know that what omnipotence is, we believe concerning the omnipotent God in the power of his miracles and of his resurrection, and we frame conceptions respecting actions of this kind according to the species and genera of things that are either engrafted in us by nature or gathered by experience, that our faith may not be feigned. For neither do we know the countenance of the Virgin Mary, from whom, untouched by her husband, nor tainted in the birth itself, he was wonderfully born. Neither have we seen what were the lineaments of the body of Lazarus, nor yet Bethany, nor the sepulchre, and that stone which he commanded to be removed when he raised him from the dead, nor the new tomb cut out in the rock, whence he himself arose, nor the Mount of Olives from whence he ascended into heaven. And in short, whoever of us have not seen these things know not whether they are as we conceive them to be, nay, judge them more probably not to be so. For when the aspect either of a place or a man, or of any other body which we happen to imagine before we saw it, turns out to be the same when it occurs to our sight as it was when it occurred to our mind, we are moved with no little wonder. So scarcely and hardly ever does it happen, and yet we believe those things most steadfastly because we imagine them according to a special and general notion of which we are certain. For we believe our Lord Jesus Christ to be born of a virgin who was called Mary. But what a virgin is, or what it is to be born, and what is a proper name we do not believe, but certainly know. And whether that was the countenance of Mary which occurred to the mind in speaking of those things, or recollecting them, we neither know at all nor believe. It is allowable, then, in this case, to say without violation of the faith, perhaps she had such or such a countenance, perhaps she had not. But no one could say without violation of the Christian faith that perhaps Christ was born of a virgin. Wherefore, since we desire to understand the eternity and equality and unity of the Trinity as much as it permitted us, but ought to believe before we understand, and since we must watch carefully that our faith be not feigned, since we must have the fruition of the same Trinity that we may live blessedly, but if we have believed anything false of it, our hope would be worthless and our charity not pure. How then can we love by believing that Trinity which we do not know? Is it according to the special or general notion according to which we love the Apostle Paul? in whose case, even if he was not of that countenance which occurs to us when we think of him, and this we do not know at all, yet we know what a man is. For not to go far away, this we are, and it is manifest he too was this, and that his soul joined to his body lived after the manner of mortals. Therefore we believe this of him, which we find in ourselves according to the species or genus under which all human nature alike is comprised. What then do we know, whether specially or generally, of that most excellent Trinity, as if there were many such Trinities, some of which we had learned by experience, so that we may believe that Trinity too to have been such as they, through the rule of similitude, impressed upon us, whether a special or general notion, and thus love also that thing which we believe and do not yet know, from the parity of the thing which we do know? But this certainly is not so. Or is it that as we love in our Lord Jesus Christ that he rose from the dead, although we never saw anyone rise from thence, so we can believe in and love the Trinity which we do not see, and the like of which we never have seen? But we certainly know what it is to die and what it is to live, because we both live and from time to time have seen and experienced both dead and dying persons. And what else is it to rise again, except to live again, that is, to return to life from death? When therefore we say and believe that there is a Trinity, we know what a Trinity is, because we know what three are, but this is not what we love. For we can easily have this whenever we will, to pass over other things by just holding up three fingers. Or do we indeed love not every Trinity, but the Trinity that is God? We love then in the Trinity that it is God, but we never saw or knew any other God, because God is one, he alone whom we have not yet seen, and whom we love by believing. But the question is, from what likeness or comparison of known things can we believe, in order that we may love God, whom we do not yet know? Chapter 6. How the man not yet righteous can know the righteous man whom he loves. Return then with me and let us consider why we love the Apostle. Is it at all on account of his humankind, which we know right well, in that we believe him to have been a man? Assuredly not. For if it were so, he now is not him whom we love, since he is no longer that man, for his soul is separated from his body. But we believe that which we love in him to be still living, and we love his righteous mind. From what general or special rule then, except that we know both what a mind is and what it is to be righteous? And we say indeed not unfitly, that we therefore know what a mind is, because we too have a mind. For neither did we ever see it with our eyes and gather a special or general notion from the resemblance of more minds than one, which we had seen, but rather, as I have said before, because we too have it. For what is known so intimately and so perceives itself to be itself, as that by which also all other things are perceived, that is, the mind itself? For we recognize the movements of bodies also, by which we perceive that others live besides ourselves, from the resemblance of ourselves, since we also so move our body in living as we observe those bodies to be moved. For even when a living body is moved, there is no way open to our eyes to see the mind, a thing which can't be seen by the eyes, but we perceive something to be contained in that bulk, such as is contained in ourselves, so as to move in like manner our own bulk, which is the life and the soul. Neither is this, as it were, the property of human foresight and reason, since brute animals also perceive that not only they themselves live, but also other brute animals interchangeably, and the one the other, and that we ourselves do so. Neither do they see our souls, save from the movements of the body, and that immediately and most easily by some natural agreement. Therefore we both know the mind of anyone from our own, and believe also from our own of him whom we do not know. For not only do we perceive that there is a mind, but we can also know what a mind is by reflecting upon our own, for we have a mind. But whence do we know what a righteous man is? For we said above that we love the apostle for no other reason except that he is a righteous mind. We know then what a righteous man also is, just as we know what a mind is. But what a mind is, as has been said, we know from ourselves, for there is a mind in us. But whence do we know what a righteous man is, if we are not righteous? But if no one but he who is righteous knows what is a righteous man, no one but a righteous man loves a righteous man. For one can't love him whom one believes to be righteous, for this very reason that one does believe him to be righteous, if one does not know what it is to be righteous, according to that which we have shown above, that no one loves what he believes and does not see, except by some rule of a general or special notion. And if for this reason no one but a righteous man loves a righteous man, how will anyone wish to be a righteous man who is not yet so? For no one wishes to be that which he does not love. But certainly, that he who is not righteous may be so, it is necessary that he should wish to be righteous, and in order that he may wish to be righteous, he loves the righteous. He loves the righteous man. Therefore, even if he who is not yet righteous loves the righteous man, but he can't love the righteous man who is ignorant what a righteous man is. Accordingly, even if he who is not yet righteous knows what a righteous man is, whence then does he know this? Does he see it with his eyes? Is any corporeal thing righteous as it is white or black or square or round? Who could say this? Yet with one eye one has seen nothing except corporeal things. But there is nothing righteous in a man except the mind, and when a man is called a righteous man, he is called so from the mind, not from the body. For righteousness is in some sort the beauty of the mind, by which men are beautiful, very many too who are misshapen and deformed in body. And as the mind is not seen with the eyes, so neither is its beauty. From whence then does he who is not yet righteous know what a righteous man is, and love the righteous man that he may become righteous? Do certain signs shine forth by the motion of the body by which this or that man is manifested to be righteous? But whence does anyone know that these are the signs of a righteous mind, when he is wholly ignorant what it is to be righteous? Therefore he does know. But whence do we know what it is to be righteous, even when we are not yet righteous? If we know from without ourselves, we know it by some bodily thing, but this is not a thing of the body. Therefore we know in ourselves what it is to be righteous. For I find this nowhere else when I seek to utter it, except within myself. And if I ask another what it is to be righteous, he seeks within himself what to answer, and whosoever hence can answer truly, he has found within himself what to answer. And when indeed I wish to speak of Carthage, I seek within myself what to speak, and I find within myself a notion or image of Carthage. But I have received this through the body, that is, through the perception of the body, since I have been present in that city in the body, and I saw and perceived it and retained it in my memory, that I might find within myself a word concerning it, whenever I might wish to speak of it. For its word is the image itself of it in my memory, not that sound of two syllables when Carthage is named, or even when that name itself is thought of silently from time to time, but that which I discern in my mind when I utter that syllable with my voice, or when even before I utter it. So also when I wish to speak of Alexandria, which I never saw, an image of it is present with me. For whereas I had heard from many and had believed that city to be great, in such way as it could be told me, I formed an image of it in my mind as I was able, and this is with me its word when I wish to speak of it, before I utter with my voice the 5 syllables which make the name that almost everyone knows. And yet, if I could bring forth that image from my mind to the eyes of men who know Alexandria, certainly only they would say, it is not. Or if they said it is, I should greatly wonder. And as I gazed at it in my mind, that is, at the image which was, as it were, its picture, I should yet not know it to be, but should believe those who retained an image they had seen. But I do not so ask what it is to be righteous, nor do I so find it, nor do I so gaze upon it when I utter it. Neither am I so approved when I am heard, nor do I so approve when I hear. As though I have seen such a thing with my eyes, or learned it by some perception of the body, or heard it from those who had so learned it. For when I say and say knowingly that mind is righteous, which knowingly and of purpose assigns to every one his due in life and behavior, I do not think of anything absent as Carthage, or imagine it as I am able as Alexandria, whether it be so or not. But I discern something present, and I discern it within myself. Though I myself I am not that which I discern, and many, if they hear, will approve it. And whoever hears me and knowingly approves, he who to discerns this same thing within himself, even though he himself be not what he discerns. But when a righteous man says this, he discerns and says that which he himself is. And whence also does he discern it, except within himself? But this is not to be wondered at, for whence should he discern himself except within himself? The wonderful thing is that the mind should see within itself that which it has seen nowhere else, and should see truly and should see the very true righteous mind, and should itself be a mind, and yet not a righteous man, which nevertheless it sees within itself. Is there another mind that is righteous in a mind that is not yet righteous? Or, if there is not, what does it there see when it sees and says what is a righteous mind, nor sees it anywhere else but in itself, when itself is not a righteous mind? Is that which it sees an inner truth present to the mind which has power to behold it? Yet all have not that power, and they who have power to behold it are not all also that which they behold, that is, they are not also righteous minds themselves, just as they are able to see and to say what is a righteous mind. And whence will they be able to be so except by cleaving to that very same form itself which they behold, so that from thence they may be formed and may be righteous minds, not only discerning and saying that the mind is righteous, which knowingly and of purpose assigns to every one that which is his due in life and behavior, but so likewise that they themselves may live righteously and be righteous in character, by assigning to every one that which is his due, so as to owe no man anything but to love one another. Romans 13:8. And whence can anyone cleave to that form but by loving it? Why then do we love another whom we believe to be righteous, and do not love that form itself wherein we see what is a righteous mind, that we also may be able to be righteous? Is it that unless we loved that also we should not love him at all, whom through it we love? But whilst we are not righteous, we love that form too little to allow of our being able to be righteous. The man, therefore, who is believed to be righteous is loved through that form and truth which he who loves discerns and understands within himself. But that very form and truth itself can be loved from any other source than itself. For we do not find any other such thing besides itself, so that by believing we might love it when it is unknown, in that we here already know another such thing. For whatsoever of such a kind one may have seen is itself, and there is not any other such thing, since itself alone is such as itself is. He therefore who loves men ought to love them either because they are righteous, or that they may become righteous. For so also he ought to love himself either because he is righteous, or that he may become righteous. For in this way he loves his neighbor as himself without any risk. For he who loves himself otherwise loves himself wrongfully, since he loves himself to this end that he may be unrighteous. Therefore, to this end that he may be wicked, and hence it follows next that he does not love himself, for he who loves iniquity hates his own soul. Psalm 11, verse 6.